100 sleepy facts about the Maya civilization. Hello there, and welcome to History to Fall Asleep. Tonight, we are traveling through the warm lowlands, high valleys, limestone hills, and forested plains of the ancient Maya world. This is a journey across many centuries. It is a story of cities rising above the trees, of farmers reading the seasons, of scribes painting books, and of stone monuments quietly holding memories of people who lived long ago. The Maya world was never one simple kingdom. It was a wide landscape of languages, communities, rulers, artists, traders, astronomers, and families. Across what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, people built places that still seem to listen to the sky. They watched the movement of the sun, moon, and Venus. They counted time in overlapping cycles. They raised pyramids that felt like mountains, planned reservoirs for long, dry months, and carved history into stone. And although ancient cities changed, declined, or fell silent, Maya people did not disappear. Millions of Maya people live today, carrying living languages, traditions, knowledge, and connections to the land. If you enjoy these quiet journeys through the past, you are welcome to like, subscribe, or leave a gentle thought below. It helps other sleepy listeners find their way here, one peaceful evening at a time. But for now, let your shoulders loosen. Let your breathing grow slow and easy. Let the noise of the day settle somewhere far away. And imagine a moonlit path through a forest, where an old white road leads toward a distant temple, rising softly above the trees. Let us begin. 1. The Maya were never one single empire. When people hear the words Maya civilization, they may imagine one vast kingdom ruled from one capital. But the ancient Maya world was more like a constellation. It was made up of many cities, kingdoms, and communities connected by trade, family ties, shared ideas, rivalry, and ceremony. Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, Copán, Cacao, and many other cities had their own rulers and their own local histories. These places could form alliances, exchange gifts, compete for influence, and sometimes go to war. Yet they also shared many cultural threads. Related languages, calendars, writing traditions, artistic styles, and ways of understanding time. The result was a world that felt connected without being uniform. It was a mosaic, not a single block of stone. That is a gentle place to begin. The Maya story is not one voice speaking alone. It is many voices echoing across forests and centuries. 2. The Maya world covered a surprisingly large region. Ancient Maya communities lived across a broad part of Mesoamerica. Their world included much of present-day southern Mexico, Guatemala, Belize, and parts of Honduras and El Salvador. It stretched from humid tropical lowlands to cooler mountain valleys, from limestone plains filled limestone water to coastable lands touched by the Caribbean Sea and the Gulf of Mexico. Because the landscape was so varied, no single way of life could fit every Maya community. Farmers in a dry northern region faced different challenges from people living beside rivers in the south. Builders used local stone. Traders followed routes shaped by forests, rivers, and coastlines. Languages shifted from place to place, even when people recognized shared traditions. In the quietest sense, the Maya world was a geography of adaptation. Every community learned what its particular piece of land could offer and what it asked in return. 3. Maya history unfolded over more than 2,000 years. The story of the ancient Maya is long enough to make ordinary calendars feel small. Maya-speaking communities were present in America long before the famous tall pyramids and carved monuments of the classic period. Early villages grew, farming expanded, ceremonial centers appeared, and then great cities emerged over many centuries. Archaeologists often speak of broad periods such as the pre-classic, the classic, and the post-classic. These labels are useful, but they should not make the past feel too neat. Change did not happen on one morning or in one place. Some cities grew while others rested. New styles appeared beside older customs. In one region, people were building new temples, while in another, families were preserving older ways. This long timeline is part of what makes Maya history so restful to imagine. It does not rush. It accumulates slowly, like layers of soil beneath a forest floor. 4. Many early Maya communities grew around farming villages. Before famous city skylines appeared, there were villages. Families lived near fields, water sources, and useful stands of forest. They planted crops, made pottery, shaped stone tools, and gathered in communal places. Over time, some of these settlements became centers for trade, ritual, and leadership. Maize, often called corn in English, became central to food and to Maya ideas about life itself. Yet farming was never only a matter of placing seeds into soil. It required knowledge of rain, soil, insects, seasons, and storage. In some places, people used raised fields or terraces. In others, they carefully worked forest clearings and gardens. A city begins long before its tallest building. It begins with meals, paths, households, shared labor, and the steady hope that the next season will bring enough rain. 5. The tropical forest was not empty wilderness. Modern visitors sometimes look at the great forests around Maya ruins and imagine that ancient cities were isolated islands in untouched jungle. No. But the landscape was shaped by people for generations. Maya communities managed forests, planted gardens, gathered useful plants, and created fields, orchards, reservoirs, and pathways. The forest itself was full of practical knowledge. It offered wood for buildings and fires, fibers for cords and cloth, medicinal plants, fruit, dye materials, animals to hunt, and shade during hot days. People did not simply live beside the forest. They lived in conversation with it. That conversation was not always easy. Clearing land, growing food, and supplying dense populations created pressure on local environments. Yet the image of ancient Maya life should not be one of people standing apart from nature. It was a life woven directly into trees, rain, soil, stone, and seasonal change. 6. Water shaped almost every decision in Maya life. In many parts of the Maya lowlands, rivers were scarce, and lakes were not always nearby. Rain arrived in seasons, and long dry months could be difficult. This made water more precious than it might seem in a green landscape. Maya communities learned to collect it, store it, guide it, and protect it. At some cities, people built reservoirs lined or shaped to hold rainfall. At Chichén Itzá, natural limestone sinkholes, called cenotes, offered access to underground water. In other regions, wetlands and streams played a larger role. The exact solutions changed with the land, because each city had its own water problems. There is something peaceful in the thought of a reservoir at dusk. A still surface reflecting clouds, stone steps leading down, and a whole community quietly aware that this stored rain was part of its future. 7. Maya cities were designed around open plazas. A Maya city was not built like a modern city of straight streets and identical blocks. Important buildings often gathered around plazas, broad, open spaces where people could meet, watch ceremonies, trade, hear announcements, and see the temples rising nearby. A plaza was more than an empty square. It was a stage for public life. It linked palaces, pyramids, courtyards, altars, and ball courts. It helped a city turn stone buildings into a shared landscape. Even today, when trees and grass cover old sites, the shapes of plazas still make it possible to sense how people moved through those spaces. Imagine walking into one at early morning. The air is cool. Birds call from the canopy. Stone steps catch the first light. For a moment, the plaza is not a ruin. It is a place waiting for people to arrive. 8. Temple pyramids were often understood as sacred mountains. Many Maya pyramids rise in steps, lifting a temple room above the surrounding plaza. Their form can remind us of mountains, and in Maya languages, pyramids could be associated with the idea of a mountain. This was not only about height. Mountains were places of clouds, rain, caves, ancestors, and power. A temple at the top created a route upward from the public square to a higher and more restricted space. Processions could climb the steep stairs. Rulers and ritual specialists could appear above the crowd. The building itself shaped how people felt, making them look upward towards stone, sky, and ceremony. At night, these structures would have changed again. Without modern lights, the temple would become a dark silhouette against stars. Its sharp edges would soften. Its importance would remain, but its details would drift into shadow. 9. Palaces were not simply houses. Maya palaces were large, complex buildings with many rooms, courtyards, benches, passageways, and working spaces. They were places where royal families lived. But they were also centers of administration, craft production, ceremony, diplomacy, and storage. A palace could contain quiet rooms for rest and preparation, as well as areas for receiving visitors, keeping records, or organizing labor. Its walls might be decorated with sculpture, painted plaster, or carved inscriptions. Some palaces stood beside plazas so that royal life remained closely connected to public ceremony. It is tempting to think of a palace as a grand private home. But In the Maya world, it was more like a small world. Inside the larger city, it held family, authority, art, memory, and work. Behind every decorated doorway were ordinary tasks, carried out day after day. 10. Maya builders worked with stone, stucco, wood, and patience. Maya architecture was built without iron tools, without steel cranes, and without wheeled carts, in the way modern construction often uses them. Builders worked with limestone, volcanic stone in some regions, wood, plaster, lime, and skilled human labor. Stone could be quarried, shaped, carried, and set in place with astonishing care. Stucco, a smooth plaster made from lime, gave surfaces a bright finish and allowed artists to model faces, symbols, and elaborate decorations. Paint added color. Wood supported roofs and doorways. Over time, rain and roots have changed much of what once looked bright and finished. So, the grey stone seen today is only part of the original picture. The slow work of building mattered as much as the final result. A temple was not lifted in a day. It rose through many hands, many seasons, and many acts of coordination. 11. The Maya built broad raised roads called sacbiob. In the Yucatan and some other Maya regions, raised white roads, known as sacbiob, connected important places. The word is often translated as white roads, a fitting name because limestone surfaces could pale under the sun and even luminous under moonlight. Some sacbiob linked groups of buildings within a city. Others extended farther, joining one settlement to another. They were practical routes, but they could also carry political and ceremonial meaning. A road can say that two places belong together. It can guide trade, pilgrimage, officials, visitors, and messages. Picture one after sunset. The forest on either side is dark. The road remains faintly bright, a long pale ribbon disappearing between trees. It is easy to understand why a raised limestone path could feel almost magical, even though it was created through very practical human effort. 12. Tikal became one of the great cities of the Maya lowlands. Tikal, in what is now Guatemala, grew into one of the most powerful and famous Maya cities. Its tall temples rise above the forest canopy, and its central plazas, palace, causeways, and reservoirs show the scale of urban life that developed there. For centuries, Tikal was a major political and cultural center. Its rulers commissioned monuments, managed alliances, and competed with other powerful cities. The city's architecture still gives a sense of height and drama, especially the steep temple pyramids that stand above the surrounding trees. But Tikal was not only made of ceremonial buildings. It depended on farmers, craftspeople, builders, merchants, workers, and families living across a much wider urban landscape. Great cities are always supported by countless ordinary lives. The temples may catch the eye, but the city itself was carried by people whose names were rarely carved in stone. 13. Calakmul was a powerful rival to Tikal. Calakmul, in the forest of present-day Campeche, Mexico, was another immense Maya center. For long stretches of the classic period, it stood as a major rival to Tikal. Their competition was not a simple story of two cities facing each other across a map. Each city built networks of allies and influenced smaller kingdoms. Maya inscriptions have helped scholars trace parts of this political world. A ruler's success could depend on marriages, diplomatic gifts, military victories, and the loyalty of neighboring places. In this sense, power was spread through relationships as much as through walls. Today, Calakmul sits deep in forest. Its monuments, plazas, and pyramids emerge from green surroundings that make the scale of the old city feel almost secret. It reminds us that even powerful capitals can become quiet, while the forest continues to grow around them. 14. Palenque is known for its graceful architecture and sculpture. Palenque, in present-day Chiapas, Mexico, was smaller than some of the largest Maya capitals, yet it became famous for the elegance of its buildings and carvings. Its palaces have airy courtyards and corridors. Its temples include finely made roof combs and inscriptions that preserve dynastic history. The city lies near springs and forested hills, giving it a landscape quite different from dry northern Yucatan or the broad plains around some lowland centers. Water moved through channels and aqueducts. Buildings seemed to sit in a setting of mist, foliage, and stone. Palenque shows that Maya achievement did not depend only on size. A city could be influential through artistry, writing, architecture, and the skill with which it shaped its local environment. In the soft, damp air of its setting, stone seems less like a barrier and more like something growing out of the earth. 15. Copán became famous for carved monuments and stairways. Copán, in present-day Honduras, is celebrated for its intricate sculpture and its long hieroglyphic stairway. The stairway was built from many carved blocks carrying texts that recorded parts of the city's dynastic history. It turned a route upward into a written monument. The carvings of Copán show rulers, deities, animals, symbols, and elaborate patterns. Artists worked stone with remarkable sensitivity, turning hard material into faces, feathers, ornaments, and flowing forms. The city was also an important center for learning about Maya writing, because its monuments preserve so much text. Standing before a carved stairway is a quiet experience. The steps once carried feet. The blocks carry words. Time has worn parts of the message away, but enough remains to show that the Maya understood stone as both architecture and memory. 16. Caracol was a large city hidden for centuries by forest. Caracol, in present-day Belize, was one of the largest ancient Maya cities. Its built landscape included plazas, temples, reservoirs, roads, and many residential areas spread through the countryside. Modern research has shown that its population and urban reach were far greater than early visitors once assumed. The city's name is modern, meaning snail in Spanish, but its ancient name was different. What matters most is that Caracol helps us see Maya urban life as more than a cluster of famous temples. It was a broad inhabited landscape filled with households, fields, workshops, and routes. When forests reclaim old cities, they do not erase everything. They cover, protect, disturb, and sometimes reveal. At Calakmul, the canopy held the shape of an old world beneath it, waiting for careful research to make its outlines visible again. 17. Chichén Itzá grew in the northern Yucatan. Chichén Itzá became one of the great Maya centers of the northern Yucatan Peninsula. It was occupied for centuries and shows the meeting of Maya traditions with influences from central Mexico. Its stone monuments, ball court, temple complexes, and famous pyramid continue to draw visitors from around the world. The city's location was important because of nearby cenotes, natural sinkholes that gave access to water. In a region with few surface rivers, this was no small advantage. Water, trade routes, political power, and ritual all gathered in the same place. Chichén Itzá also reminds us that Maya history continued after the Classic period. It was not frozen in the age of Tikal and Palenque. New cities rose. New artistic styles appeared. The old world changed, but it did not simply stop. 18. Uxmal is known for the elegant puke style. Uxmal, in the Yucatan Peninsula, is one of the best-known cities built in the architectural style called puuk. Its buildings often have relatively plain lower walls and richly decorated upper facades filled with geometric patterns, masks, mosaics, and sculpted details. The palace of the governor and other structures at Uxmal show how Maya architects could make large buildings feel balanced and graceful. Stonework was arranged with such precision that walls seemed to carry rhythm, almost like music made visible. Uxmal was shaped by the challenges of its region, where water management mattered deeply. The city depended on cisterns and other systems for storing rainwater. Its beauty was not separate from practicality. The same city that made ornate facades also had to plan for dry seasons, household needs, and long-term survival. 19. Maya cities had many neighborhoods, not just ceremonial centers. The temples and palaces of Maya cities are the most visible parts of ancient sites, but they were only the center of much larger living areas. Around and beyond the plazas stood homes, gardens, small shrines, workshops, paths, and places for daily work. A household might include several structures arranged around a courtyard. Family members cooked, made tools, repaired clothing, prepared food, cared for children, and stored supplies. People did not spend every day climbing pyramids or attending ceremonies. Most life happened close to home. This is a useful thought for bedtime. History can seem full of kings and monuments because those are the things that survive in books. But ancient cities were also full of small sounds. Grinding maize, sweeping floors, talking in courtyards, rain on roofs, and footsteps on packed earth. 20. Maize was both food and a deep symbol of life. Maize was one of the most important crops in the Maya world. It could be ground into dough, cooked into many forms, and stored for later use. It is beef, along with beans, squash, chili peppers, and other foods. It helped sustain communities across diverse landscapes. But maize was never only a crop. In Maya stories and traditions, it could carry deep meaning about creation, identity, and renewal. The cycle of planting, growth, harvest, and replanting connected food to time itself. A field was a place of labor, but also a place where people could see the rhythm of the year. At night, when a city was quiet, the next season's maize might already be stored in baskets or jars. The future was partly sleeping in those kernels, waiting for rain, soil, sunlight, and patient hands. 21. Beans and squash helped make farming more resilient. Maya agriculture was not built around one plant alone. Beans, squash, chili peppers, fruits, roots, herbs, and many other foods played important roles. Beans could add nutrients to diets, and in some farming arrangements help support soil fertility. Squash could spread across the ground and provide food from both fruit and seeds. Growing several crops was practical. Different plants ripened at different times. Some handled dry conditions better. Some could be stored. Some added variety to meals. A household that knew many plants had more choices when weather changed. This kind of farming knowledge was not written only in books. It lived in habits, conversations, observation, and memory. It was taught by watching elders, working fields, tasting soil, noticing clouds, and remembering what had happened in previous years. 22. Cacao was a valuable and meaningful drink. Cacao, the plant from which chocolate is made, was important in many Maya regions. Its beans were valuable, and cacao drinks could be prepared for special occasions. Painted vessels and inscriptions show that chocolate beverages were part of elite life and ceremony in the classic period. The ancient drink was not the sweet chocolate people often know today. It could be bitter, spicy, foamy, and carefully prepared. Pouring liquid from one vessel to another helped create foam, which was valued. The drink could be flavored in different ways, depending on place and occasion. Cacao also connected distant regions. It grows best in certain climates, so it moved through trade networks. In that way, a cup of cacao could contain a small map of the Maya world. Growers, traders, artists, vessels, ceremonies, and the long routes that brought ingredients together. 23. Salt was an essential resource of the Maya world. Salt does not look glamorous beside jade or carved stone, but it was deeply important. People needed salt for food, health, and preservation. Along coasts and in some inland areas, Maya communities produced and traded it. Salt could be obtained by evaporating seawater or brine, often in shallow containers or controlled spaces. Its production required knowledge, labor, fuel, and access to the right conditions. Because it was useful to nearly everyone, it moved through networks that linked coastal and inland communities. A grain of salt can feel too small to belong in a grand history. Yet, it reminds us that civilizations rest on ordinary necessities. Temples might announce power, but kitchens, storerooms, and trade routes kept people alive. The quiet things often hold the largest stories. 24. Obsidian connected the Maya to distant volcanic lands. Obsidian is volcanic glass, often dark and glossy, that can be shaped into extremely sharp edges. Much of the Maya lowlands did not have local sources of obsidian, so it had to be brought in through trade from volcanic highlands and other regions. Skilled craftspeople could make blades, points, and tools from obsidian. Its sharp edges made it useful for cooking and other tasks. The materials movement shows that Maya trade was wide-reaching. A person in a lowland city might hold a blade made from stone formed far away in volcanic landscapes. There is something quietly beautiful in that connection. A black, shining fragment, carried across hills and forests, becomes proof that ancient people were linked by more than shared ideas. They were linked by actual objects moving from hand to hand. 25. Jade was prized for its color and rarity. Jade was one of the most valued materials in the ancient Maya world. Its green and blue-green colors could suggest water, plants, life, and preciousness. Craftspeople shaped jade into beads, pendants, ear ornaments, masks, and other elite objects. Working jade took time. It is hard stone, and it had to be cut, drilled, and polished with patience and abrasive materials. The finished pieces could be small, but their value was great. Jade often appeared in royal and ceremonial contexts, where its color and difficulty helped mark it as special. A polished jade bead can seem almost alive under soft light. It is cool to the touch, smooth after long work, and full of hidden labor. In that small green object, the Maya world of trade, craft, status, and symbolism becomes easy to imagine. 26. Feathers were among the most precious artistic materials. Bright feathers, especially from tropical birds, could be used in headdresses, garments, fans, and ceremonial objects. Feathers were light, vivid, and difficult to preserve, which makes surviving examples rare. Yet, art shows how important they were in royal display and ritual. A feathered costume could change the appearance of a person completely. Movement made colors shimmer. Wind made ornaments tremble. In ceremonies, a ruler or performer could appear not merely dressed, but transformed into a figure connected to birds, gods, or mythic stories. Unlike stone, feathers fade and disappear. That makes them a reminder that much of the ancient Maya world has not survived in the form it once had. The ruins preserve stone, but they cannot fully preserve the sound of cloth, the color of feathers, or the movement of dancers in a plaza. 27. Maya traders carried goods across forests, coasts, and rivers. Trade linked Maya communities across long distances. Goods such as salt, cacao, obsidian, jade, shells, feathers, cloth, pottery, and food moved through networks that crossed many kinds of terrain. Some travel happened on foot. Some followed rivers or coastal routes by canoe. Traders did more than carry objects. They carried news, styles, techniques, stories, and relationships. A new type of vessel, a rare stone, or a foreign ornament could signal that faraway places were not as distant as they seemed. The roads through forest were not empty lines on a map. They were used by people who knew where to find water, where to rest, how to avoid danger, and how to recognize the territory of different communities. Every trade route was also a thread of human memory. 28. Canoes helped connect the Maya coastlands. Along the coasts and waterways of the Maya region, canoes were important for travel and trade. A canoe could carry people, food, tools, and goods along rivers, lagoons, and shorelines, called water routes, could be faster than moving through thick forest, especially for heavy cargo. Coastal trade linked the Yucatan Peninsula with places around the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. The sea could be dangerous, but it also opened a different kind of road, one that did not require clearing trees or climbing hills. Imagine a canoe moving through calm water near sunset. The paddles rise and dip. The shoreline becomes a dark line. Somewhere ahead, a village waits with goods to exchange and stories to hear. Ancient trade was not always dramatic. Often, it was a long, quiet journey from one familiar place to another. 29. Maya markets brought together people from different communities. Markets were important spaces for exchange. People could bring food, pottery, cloth, tools, salt, ornaments, and other goods. A market was also a place for conversation, news, and social contact. Even when archaeologists cannot see every market stall, evidence from art, objects, and settlement patterns helps show the importance of exchange. Markets made cities more than ceremonial centers. They turned them into places where rural producers, craftspeople, traders, and visitors could meet. A person might come to sell vegetables, buy a stone tool, find cloth, hear about a neighboring town, or the sound of a market would have been very different from the stillness of ruins today. There would have been voices, baskets, birds, footsteps, and bargaining. Yet, even that busy scene belonged to a slower world, where travel and trade depended on time, memory, and human endurance. 30. Maya artists painted pottery with remarkable skill. Maya pottery was more than a container for food or drink. During the classic period, artists created finely painted vessels with scenes of rulers, gods, animals, ball players, musicians, and stories. Some vessels also carried hieroglyphic texts that named owners, described contents, or added meaning to the imagery. The artists understood line, color, movement, and storytelling. A painted vase could become a small stage wrapped around a cylinder. As someone turned it in their hands, a scene could unfold. Some painters even signed their work, leaving traces of individual artistic identity. It is easy to forget that the ancient past had artists with personal skill and style. But a carefully painted vessel reminds us that someone once sat with pigments and brushes, making choices about curves, faces, colors, and words. That quiet act of creation still reaches us. 31. Some Maya artists signed their own work. For a long time, people assumed that ancient art was anonymous. But Maya inscriptions have shown that some artists and sculptors signed their creations. Their names appear on pottery and carved objects, sometimes with titles that suggest professional pride. This is a lovely detail because it brings ancient makers close to us. A person who painted a vessel or carved a stone did not always disappear completely behind a ruler's name. Sometimes they left a small mark saying, in effect, this was made by me. Their signatures tell us that Maya courts supported skilled specialists. Art was not only decoration. It was a respected form of knowledge, involving technique, literacy, symbolism, and close observation. A line painted long ago can still carry the presence of the hand that guided it. 32. Maya writing combined word signs and sound signs. Maya writing used a complex system of glyphs. Some signs could represent whole words or ideas. Others could represent syllables, allowing scribes to spell names and phrases. Together, these signs made it possible to record languages in rich and flexible ways. The writing could appear on stone monuments, pottery, lintels, stairways, shell, bone, and folded bark paper books. Glyph blocks were often arranged in neat pairs, creating a visual rhythm that feels both artistic and precise. Reading them is not like reading a modern alphabet, but it is not simply picture writing either. For centuries, much of the script was difficult to understand. Today, scholars can read a large portion of it, and each new decipherment brings ancient voices back into the conversation. A carved sign can be a sound, a name, a date, a title, or a memory. 33. Maya scribes were highly trained specialists. Writing in the Maya world required skill. A scribe needed to know many signs, understand language, recognize calendar forms, and work with visual design. Scribes painted books and pottery, carved or planned inscriptions, and helped preserve the public memory of royal courts. Their work was slow and careful. A mistake on a stone monument could not be erased as easily as a note on paper. A scribe had to plan the arrangement of glyphs, make them fit the available space, and ensure that a message remained both readable and beautiful. In a palace room or workshop, a scribe may have sat near pigments, brushes, shells, and folded paper. Outside, a city could be loud with work. Inside, the focus would be intense. Writing created a small stillness, a way of turning speech and time into lasting marks. 34. The Maya made books from bark paper. Maya books, often called codices, were made from bark paper prepared and folded like an accordion. They could hold painted glyphs, calendar records, images, and ritual information. Only a few pre-colonial Maya books survive today, in part because so many were destroyed during the colonial era. The surviving codices are precious because they show that Maya knowledge did not live only on stone. It also lived in portable books, carried, read, painted, and consulted by trained people. Their pages contain careful calculations, images, and complex systems of time. A folded book is easy to imagine in the quiet. It opens panel by panel, each surface carrying colored signs. It is both delicate and powerful. A city can fall silent, but a book can carry its ideas far beyond its walls. 35. Stone monuments recorded the names and events of rulers. Maya stelae were upright stone monuments, often carved with images of rulers and long inscriptions. They could record accession dates, victories, alliances, ceremonies, and important events in dynastic history. A stela was a public statement, placed where people could see and remember. Many rulers appear on these monuments dressed in elaborate clothing, holding ceremonial objects, and standing among glyphs that name them. The stone connected a person's life to larger cycles of time. A ruler did not simply claim power in the present. They placed that power inside history. Today, the faces on stelae can seem calm and distant. Yet they were once political messages carefully designed to be seen by specific audiences. They remind us that people in the past also worried about reputation, legitimacy, and how they would be remembered. 36. Maya numbers used dots and bars. The Maya developed a clear and elegant number system using dots and bars. A dot commonly represented 1, while a bar represented 5. By arranging them in positions, scribes could write larger numbers. The system was well suited to calendars and calculations. Maya mathematics used a base 20 structure in many contexts. This may feel unfamiliar to people used to counting by tens, but it is simply another way of organizing number. The system made it possible to count days, periods of time, and quantities with precision. There is a calm simplicity in a row of dots and bars. A complex count can begin with a few small marks. From those marks, the Maya could build long sequences that reached far into the past and future. Mathematics in this form became a quiet language of order. 37. The Maya used a symbol for zero. One of the most famous achievements of Maya mathematics was the use of a symbol for zero in their number system. Zero allowed a place to be empty, while still keeping the value of other positions clear. This made large counts more precise and more flexible. The idea may sound ordinary now, because modern mathematics depends on zero. But it is a powerful concept. It lets people describe absence, hold a place, and organize numbers in a way that supports complex calculation. In the Maya world, it helped make long calendar counts possible. A zero is not nothing in the careless sense. It is a carefully marked space. It is a place where one thing is absent, so that everything around it can be understood more clearly. That is a surprisingly peaceful thought to carry into the night. 38. The Tzolk'in was a sacred cycle of 260 days. The Tzolk'in is one of the best-known Maya calendar cycles. It combines 20-day names with 13 numbers, creating a sequence of 260 unique day combinations. The cycle was used for ceremonial and social purposes and remains meaningful in many Maya communities today. A person just day was not simply a number on a page. It could carry qualities, associations, and responsibilities. Calendar keepers studied these cycles and understood how they related to community life, ceremonies, and the wider movement of time. The Tzolk'in reminds us that time can be felt in more than one way. Modern calendars often make time look like boxes in rows. Maya time could also feel like a wheel, turning through named days, returning to familiar points while never repeating in exactly the same moment. 39. The Hab followed the solar year. Another important Maya calendar was the Hab, a cycle of 365 days. It was organized into 18 named months of 20 days each, plus a short period at the end of the year. This calendar was closely connected to the solar cycle and seasonal life. For farming communities, knowing the movement of the year mattered deeply. Rainy seasons, dry seasons, planting times, harvests, and ceremonies all depended on attentive observation. The harb helped create a structure for that long, yearly rhythm. Imagine the year not as a hurried list of appointments, but as a slow circle of weather, crops, light, and shared rituals. That is closer to how a calendar can feel when it is tied directly to the land. Time becomes visible in clouds, leaves, fields, and the angle of the sun. 40. The calendar round joined two cycles together. The Tzolk'in and the harb could be combined to create what scholars call the calendar round. A particular combination of the two cycles would repeat after 52 harb years. This created a larger pattern that helped identify moments within a long span of life. A calendar round date was like a meeting point between two turning wheels. One wheel moved through sacred day names and numbers. The other moved through the solar year. When their positions came together, they created a distinctive day. This way of thinking made time rich and layered. A date could belong to a day cycle, a seasonal cycle, a historical event, and a ceremonial meaning all at once. The Maya did not flatten time into one straight line. They allowed it to circle, stack, and echo. 41. The long count recorded time on a very large scale. The long count was a Maya system for marking dates across immense stretches of time. Instead of only naming a place in a repeating cycle, it counted days from a mythic starting point. Its units included days, groups of days, years, and longer periods. Long count dates appear on monuments and helped situate important events in an ordered historical sequence. A ruler's accession, a dedication, or a ceremony could be connected to time far beyond one human lifespan. This gave history a deep, almost cosmic scale. For a sleepy mind, the long count has a gentle effect. It reminds us that human worries are small beside centuries, yet human actions still matter. A carved date can hold the memory of a single day while also reaching across thousands of years. 42. The year 2012 was not a Maya prediction of the end of the world. A popular, modern misunderstanding claimed that the Maya predicted the world would end in 2012. This idea was not supported by the Maya calendar itself. The date marked the completion of a major long count cycle, not the destruction of everything. A useful comparison is a calendar turning from one century to another. The number changes. People may celebrate or reflect, but time continues. In Maya thought, cycles often renewed. Endings could also be beginnings, transitions, or returns. The 2012 story became famous because modern people are often drawn to dramatic endings. The ancient Maya, however, had a more layered view of time. Their calendars were not simple machines for predicting disaster. They were ways of understanding cycles, history, ceremony, and the continuing movement of the world. 43. Maya astronomers observed the sun, moon, and Venus. The Maya were careful observers of the sky. They watched the sun's changing path, the phases of the moon, and the patterns of Venus. These observations were connected to calendars, agricultural cycles, ceremony, and ideas about order in the universe. They did not need telescopes to see the regularity of celestial motion. They needed patience, repeated observation, records, and generations of shared knowledge. The sky became a great clock, always moving, yet always returning to recognizable patterns. For people living without electric light, the night sky was more present than it is for many people today. Stars were not hidden behind city glow. Venus could become a striking morning or evening light. The moon could guide travel, work, and story. The heavens were part of daily life. 44. Venus was especially important in Maya timekeeping. Venus is bright enough to be noticed, even by people who are not trained astronomers. To the Maya, its appearances and disappearances carried significance. Calendrical records in surviving books show careful attention to Venus cycles. Tracking Venus required looking beyond the simple day-to-day changes of the sun. It meant noticing when the planet appeared before dawn, when it vanished, when it returned after sunset, and how these patterns repeated. Such attention created a bridge between observation and meaning. Venus is still visible in the sky today, just as it was above Maya cities long ago. That continuity can feel calming. The same bright point that rose over temple roofs and forest paths rises now over roads, houses, and sleeping towns. The sky keeps its old appointments. 45. Maya builders sometimes used architecture to frame the sky. Some Maya buildings and plazas were arranged in ways that related to sunrise, sunset, horizons, or the movement of celestial bodies. Scholars study these alignments carefully because not every apparent line in a building was necessarily an astronomical instrument. Still, many sites show that the sky mattered deeply to architectural planning. A building can become a place for watching light. A doorway can frame the rising sun. A stairway can cast a changing shadow. A plaza can guide a crowd's attention toward a specific horizon. In this way, architecture helped turn observation into a shared experience. The most beautiful part is the patience involved. A single sunrise tells little, but many sunrises watched from the same place across years reveal a pattern. Ancient knowledge often grew from simply returning, again and again, to look carefully. 46. El Caracol at Chichén Itzá is an observatory-like building. At Chichén Itzá stands a round structure known today as El Caracol, meaning the snail, because of its spiral staircase. Its unusual shape and openings have led scholars to connect it with astronomical observation. It is often called an observatory-like building. The Maya did not build observatories exactly like modern scientific towers. Their knowledge was woven into temples, calendars, ritual spaces, and public architecture. El Caracol is important because it shows how a building itself could help people notice the movement of the sky. Its rounded form is especially striking among more rectangular structures. At night, one can imagine people climbing its staircase and looking outward over the dark landscape. Above them, the stars would move in their ancient paths, slow enough to seem still until memory revealed the change. 47. The Maya counted eclipses and lunar cycles. Maya calendars also included attention to the moon and to eclipse-related patterns. The surviving codices contain tables that show careful calculation of lunar cycles and possible eclipse intervals. These records reveal a high level of numerical and observational knowledge. An eclipse is dramatic, but the mathematics behind predicting its possible timing is patient and quiet. It depends on noticing repeated cycles over long periods. The Maya transformed observations into sequences that could be recorded, consulted, and passed on. For people in ancient cities, the moon was more than a decoration in the sky. It was a clock, a light source, a marker of nights, and a participant in sacred stories. Its changing shape gave time a visible face, growing and fading above the sapem temples and fields. 48. Maya religion linked the human world to a living cosmos. Maya religious life was complex and varied across time and region. It involved many gods, ancestors, sacred places, natural forces, celestial bodies, and stories of creation and renewal. The world was not divided neatly into ordinary and sacred spaces. Fields, caves, mountains, water, temples, and skies could all carry spiritual meaning. Ceremonies helped maintain balance between people, communities, and the wider universe. Offerings, music, incense, food, dance, and prayer could all be part of these practices. Rulers also took part in rituals that connected their authority to ancestors and divine forces. It is best to imagine Maya religion not as a short list of names, but as a web of relationships. The world was alive with signs and cycles. A cloud, a bird, a cave, or a date could speak through meaning learned over generations. 49. Caves were important sacred places. In the limestone landscapes of the Maya region, caves and cenotes could be powerful places. Caves led into darkness and underground water. They could feel like entrances to another level of the world, places connected to ancestors, rain, fertility, and the unseen. Archaeologists have found offerings, ceramics, bones, and other materials in some caves, showing that people visited them for ritual purposes. Entering a cave may have required preparation, light, courage, and a guide who understood the place. There is a natural stillness inside a cave. The sounds of the surface grow quiet, water drips, air changes. A small flame makes shadows move across stone. For the Maya, such places could make the invisible feel close, not through noise, but through depth and darkness. 50. Cenotes were both water sources and sacred places. Cenotes are natural sinkholes formed in limestone, especially common in the Yucatan Peninsula. Some open like pools beneath the sky. Others lead into cave systems. For ancient communities, they provided access to water in a land with few rivers on the surface. Their importance was practical and sacred at the same time. Water meant survival. But deep, clear water leading into the earth could also feel like a connection to powerful hidden places. At Chichén Itzá and elsewhere, cenotes were part of the spiritual and physical landscape. A cenote at night would be a dark circle of water beneath trees. The surface might hold a reflection of the moon. Beneath it, the stone continues downward. It is easy to understand why such places inspired both careful use and reverence. 51. The ceiba tree held deep symbolic meaning. The ceiba, a tall tropical tree with a great spreading crown, is important in Maya traditions and in broader Mesoamerican ideas about the world. It can be imagined as a tree linking different levels of existence. The roots below, the trunk in the human world, and the branches reaching upward. This image of a world tree is powerful because it turns the landscape into a map of meaning. A tree is not only wood and leaves. It becomes a living connection between earth and sky. Its height, roots, shade, and seasonal life all invite reflection. Even today, a large tree can make people slow down. It provides shelter, marks a place, and outlives many human generations. In the Maya world, trees could carry practical value and sacred resonance at the same time. 52. The ball game was more than a sport. The Mesoamerican ball game was played in Maya regions and had social, political, and ceremonial importance. Ball courts have been found at many sites. The game involved teams, heavy rubber balls, specialized gear, and rules that varied across time and place. To modern eyes, a ball court may resemble a sports arena, but its meaning could reach much further. Games could be tied to ritual, diplomacy, public display, mythic stories, and elite identity. Images of ball players appear on pottery and sculpture, showing how visually important the game was. A ball court was a shaped space where movement, sound, skill, and watching came together. The hard bounce of a rubber ball against stone walls would have carried through the plaza. Long after the players left, the court remained as a quiet outline of that energy. 53. Music played a role in Maya ceremonies. Maya art and archaeological finds show that music mattered. People used drums, rattles, whistles, trumpets, flutes, and other instruments. Musicians appear on painted ceramics, sometimes chin in groups, suggesting coordinated performance. Music could accompany ceremony, dance, procession, storytelling, and public events. It helped create atmosphere and shared rhythm. A drum beat could organize movement. A flute could cut through the sound of a crowd. A rattle could add a sharp, textured sound to ritual. Most ancient music has vanished because sound leaves little trace. But images allow us to imagine it. In a plaza, beneath bright painted buildings, there may have been drums, voices, shell trumpets, and the soft motion of dancers. At night, the echoes would fade, leaving the stone to hold the silence again. 54. Dance helped turn ceremonies into living stories. Dance was important in Maya public and ritual life. Art shows figures in elaborate costumes, moving with staffs, fans, feathers, masks, and other symbolic objects. A dance could make a story visible. It could connect a performer to an ancestor, a deity, a ruler, or a mythic event. Costume changed the body. Feathers expanded the outline of a dancer. Masks changed the face. Rhythm changed the pace of movement. What an audience saw was not only a person, but a carefully created presence. Dance reminds us that ancient history was not silent or still. The ruins are still, but the cities were full of motion. Feet moved across plazas, cloth lifted in wind. Musicians kept time. People watched, remembered, and understood the meanings carried through gesture. 55. Royal rulers used ceremony to show legitimacy. Maya kings and queens did not rule only through practical power. They also used ceremony, art, genealogy, makin, and public display to show that they had a rightful place in the order of the world. Inscriptions often connected rulers to earlier ancestors and sacred events. A royal appearance could be carefully staged. Clothing, jewelry, headdresses, posture, and location all mattered. Standing on a temple's stairway or before a carved monument made authority visible. A ruler became part of a larger story, not merely an individual person. This does not mean ordinary people simply accepted every message. Politics is always more complicated than art makes it look. But the monuments show what rulers wanted people to see. Continuity, strength, sacred connection, and a name worthy of being carved into stone. 56. Maya queens could exercise real political power. Although many famous Maya rulers were men, inscriptions also record powerful queens and women who shaped dynasties. Some ruled directly, some acted as regents, and some formed important links through marriage and ancestry. Lady Six Sky, associated with Naranjo, is one well-known example of a royal woman whose arrival and later role were recorded in inscriptions. Other women appear on monuments in ways that show ceremonial authority, family importance, and political influence. These records remind us that royal history was not only a story of kings. Dynasties depended on mothers, daughters, wives, sisters, and queens. Inheritance, alliance, and legitimacy often moved through family lines. A carved image of a woman in royal dress can hold an entire political world inside it. 57. Kinich Yanab Pakal ruled Palenque for many years. Kinich Yanab Pakal, often called Pakal the Great, was a ruler of Palenque who reigned for a long time during the 7th century. His rule is associated with major building projects, inscriptions, and the continued importance of Palenque as a Maya center. Pakal's name appears on monuments that tell parts of his dynastic story. His long life and reign allowed later generations to remember him as a central figure in the city's history. The Temple of the Inscriptions, connected to his burial, became one of the most famous monuments in the Maya world. It is easy to picture a ruler only as an image on stone. But Pakal was once a child, then a young ruler, then an older man, living through decades of ceremonies, decisions, worries, and changing alliances. History turns people into symbols. Their lives were still lived one day at a time. 58. Pakal's tomb was discovered beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions. In 1952, Archaeologist Alberto Ruiz Luye discovered a tomb beneath the Temple of the Inscriptions at Palenque. The burial contained the remains of Tikal and many offerings, including a famous jade funerary mask. The discovery was remarkable because it showed how temples could be tied directly to royal burial and memory. The temple above was not only a place for ceremony, it was also a lasting marker over the resting place of a ruler. Stone, inscription, and burial formed one connected statement. The jade mask is especially striking. Small pieces of green stone were fitted together to create a calm human face. It is both a work of art and a burial object, a reminder that Maya royalty was concerned with life, death, ancestry, and the lasting image of the self. 59. Maya blue was a brilliant and durable pigment. Maya artists used a distinctive blue pigment that has become known as Maya blue. It was made through a sophisticated combination of organic dye and clay. The resulting color could remain vivid for centuries, even in difficult conditions. Blue appeared in murals, pottery, and other art. Color mattered deeply in Maya visual culture. Buildings and sculptures that look pale today may once have been painted in reds, blues, greens, yellows, and blacks. The ancient world was not a grey stone world. It was a world of strong surfaces and deliberate color. Maya blue is a small scientific mystery made visible. It shows that artists were also material experts. They understood minerals, heat, binding, and technique. Beauty and knowledge often lived in the same workshop. 60. Ancient Maya buildings were often brightly painted. Visitors to Maya ruins today usually see weathered stone. But many buildings were once covered in plaster and painted in vivid colors. Red was common on broad surfaces. Other colors highlighted carvings, masks, and architectural details. Paint changed how a city looked. Temples would have stood out against green forest and blue sky. Processions would have moved through spaces made visually intense by color and sunlight. Sculpture was not only shaped, it was finished, enhanced, and given life through paint. Time has removed much of that color, but traces remain in some places. It is a useful reminder that ruins can never show the whole past by themselves. What we see now is a softened version, like a faded memory. The original cities were brighter, louder, and more alive. 61. Roof combs made Maya temples look even taller. Many Maya temples had decorative structures on their roofs, called roof combs. These tall, thin additions rose above the actual rooms and made the temples appear even more dramatic from a distance. They could be decorated with stucco figures, symbols, and images of rulers or gods. A roof comb did not need to be solid all the way through. Its purpose was partly visual. It created height, silhouette, and presence. From a plaza below, it made a temple seem to reach farther into the sky. This is an example of how Maya architects understood perception. A building does not need to be huge in every part to feel immense. A carefully placed vertical element can change the entire impression. At dusk, a roof comb would have turned into a delicate dark shape against the fading light. It's 62. Maya builders used corbel vaults to create stone rooms. Maya architects often used a technique called the corbel vault. Instead of a true arch with a central keystone, they built walls inward, step by step, until the gap at the top became small enough to cover. The result created tall, narrow interior spaces with distinctive, pointed ceilings. Corbel vaults required careful planning because high stone is heavy, and each layer had to support the next. The rooms they formed could feel enclosed and quiet, with stone walls close on both sides, and a ceiling rising above. Walking through such a room today can bring a strange calm. The outside world falls away. Footsteps echo. Light enters through a doorway or small opening. The architecture makes you aware of your own movement, as though the building is listening. 63. Maya households made much of what they needed. Not every object in Maya life came from a palace or distant trade route. Families made many everyday items close to home. They prepared food, wove textiles, shaped pottery, repaired tools, built houses, and cared for small gardens. Household work was skilled work. Grinding maize with a stone tool required practice. Weaving required knowledge of fiber, color, and pattern. Pottery required clay, water, temper, shaping, drying, and firing. Raising children required all of this knowledge to be passed on. The ordinary household, the ordinarical, is one of the quiet foundations of history. Great cities could not exist without people waking early, tending fires, carrying water, preparing meals, and teaching children. The grandest monument rests, in some way, on the steady rhythm of domestic life. 64. Women played central roles in food, craft, family, and society. The details of daily gender roles varied across Maya communities and periods, but women were central to household life. Food preparation, textile work, childcare, ritual, trade, and family networks. Royal women could also hold political power and appear prominently in art and inscriptions. Textiles, in particular, were important forms of skill and identity. Weaving could produce clothing, tribute goods, ceremonial garments, and household necessities. The work involved long hours, careful hands, and knowledge of patterns and materials. Because much of this work was done with organic materials, it often leaves fewer visible remains than stone monuments. But its importance should not be underestimated. A society is not held together only by rulers and builders. It is held together by people who make food, cloth, homes, relationships, and continuity. 65. Textile making was a major form of Maya artistry. Maya textiles were colorful, useful, and full of meaning. Clothing could show status, community, ritual role, and personal taste. Weavers used cotton and other fibers along with dyes and patterns that required technical knowledge. Very few ancient textiles survive because fibers decay in tropical climates. But images on pottery and sculpture show garments, capes, belts, headdresses, and woven designs. Tools, such as spindle whorls, also tell us that spinning and weaving were widespread activities. A woven cloth is a quiet kind of record. Each thread passes over and under another. Patterns grow through repetition. The finished fabric holds time inside it. The time spent preparing fiber, spinning, yarn, yarn, dyeing, weaving, and finishing. In that sense, cloth is a soft counterpart to carved stone. 66. Maya people used many languages. The Maya were not one language group, speaking one universal tongue. They spoke, and continue to speak, many related languages. Today, more than 30 Maya languages remain alive across Mesoamerica, each with its own sounds, vocabulary, and history. Ancient inscriptions reflect this linguistic diversity. The writing system was used to record forms of several languages, and scholars study these connections carefully. Language helps reveal how people thought. Named places described time and remembered families. This is another reason not to think of the Maya as a single uniform culture. Shared traditions existed alongside local differences. A word used in one region might sound different in another. A story might travel and change. Human cultures are always richer than the labels placed on them later. 67. Maya names often carried history and meaning. Maya rulers had formal names that could include titles, divine references, family links, and place associations. Inscriptions carefully recorded these names, sometimes using beautifully arranged glyphs. A name was not just a label. It could announce ancestry, authority, and connection to a wider sacred world. For modern scholars, reading names was one of the keys to understanding Maya history. Once glyphs could be deciphered more fully, monuments began to reveal not only abstract dates but actual people. Rulers, parents, rivals, artists, and allies. There is something moving about that shift. A carved face, once called merely a priest or king, can become an individual with a name and a place in a family line. The past becomes less distant when it starts speaking in names. 68. Maya politics were shaped by alliances as much as battles. Conflict did happen between Maya kingdoms, and inscriptions sometimes record captures, defeats, and victories. But politics was not only war. Alliances, marriages, tribute, ritual visits, and shared enemies all shaped the balance of power. A smaller city might seek protection from a stronger one. A royal marriage could link two dynasties. A gift of valuable goods could build trust. An inscription might celebrate not only a battle, but also the arrival of an ally, or the installation of a friendly ruler. This is familiar in human history. Power is rarely simple. It moves through promises, family ties, rivalries, and careful words. In the Maya world, these relationships were sometimes recorded in stone, giving us glimpses of decisions made long ago in palace rooms and public plazas. Part 69. Teotihuacan influenced parts of the Maya world. Teotihuacan, a great city in central Mexico, had connections with parts of the Maya world during the early classic period. Evidence from art, architecture, and inscriptions suggests that its influence reached places such as Tikal, though scholars continue to study exactly how those relationships worked. The connection may have involved trade, military action, political alliances, migration, or the adoption of powerful symbols. What is clear is that Maya cities were not isolated from the rest of Mesoamerica. They were part of a wider world of exchange and interaction. When distant cities influence each other, ideas travel as well as objects. A style of costume, a weapon form, a building type, or a royal title can carry the memory of faraway places. Ancient Mesoamerica was connected by roots of stone, water, language, and ambition. 70. The Maya created long-distance networks without modern transport. Without horses, iron railways, paved highways, or engines. The Maya still created networks that moved goods and information across great distances. This required physical endurance, local knowledge, and trust between communities. A traveler needed to know where water could be found, which paths were safe, how weather changed, and where political boundaries lay. A merchant carrying valuable goods had to plan carefully. A message sent from one court to another might pass through several hands before arriving. Now, this makes the ancient Maya world feel even more impressive. Connection did not happen because distance was easy. It happened because people were willing to cross it. The world was large, but curiosity and necessity kept drawing people along the roads. 71. Farming methods changed with the landscape. Maya farmers did not use exactly the same methods everywhere. In wetlands, people could create raised fields or use canals. On hillsides, terraces could help manage soil and water. In forested areas, fields and gardens could be opened, used, rested, and renewed. This variety shows practical intelligence. Agriculture is never just a set of instructions. It is a relationship with local conditions. A method that works in a wet valley may fail on dry limestone. A good farmer learns the differences. The ancient Maya landscape was therefore full of small experiments repeated over generations. A terrace wall, a field edge, a garden plot, and a reservoir all show people observing what the land could do. Their knowledge was written not only in glyphs, but in soil and stone. 72. Raised fields helped some communities farm wetlands. In wetter parts of the Maya region, raised fields could help people grow crops in low-lying areas. Soil was built up into elevated plots, while canals or wet spaces lay between them. These systems could help manage water, improve growing conditions, and create productive agricultural landscapes. Not every Maya city used raised fields because environments differed. But where they were practical, they show how people transformed difficult terrain into usable land. Water that might seem like an obstacle could become part of an agricultural system. A raised field landscape would have looked different from a dry cornfield. It would be a pattern of earth and water, plants and paths, reflecting the sky in narrow channels. It is another reminder that ancient farming was often an act of careful design. 73. Terraces help protect soil on slopes. In hilly regions, Maya communities sometimes built terraces. A terrace creates a flatter step on a slope, helping reduce erosion and making cultivation more manageable. Stone walls or earthworks held soil in place and turned steep land into a series of useful levels. Terracing requires labor, but it can protect the future. Each wall says that people expected to use the land for many seasons. It is a kind of long-term thinking, built one level at a time. On a hillside after rain, terraces can make water slow down instead of rushing away. In that simple act, engineering meets care. The land is not forced to become flat. It is gently reshaped so that people and soil can remain together. 74. Maya reservoirs collected rain for dry months. At several Maya sites, reservoirs were built or modified to store rainwater. This was especially important in regions where surface water was limited. Stone-lined basins, earthworks, channels, and carefully managed catchment areas helped capture seasonal rainfall. A reservoir was a form of security. It held water when clouds were gone. It allowed a city to survive longer into the dry season. It also required upkeep, protection, and collective effort. Water storage was not a one-time invention. It was a continuing responsibility. The sight of still water inside an ancient city has a special calm. It seems almost impossible that a pool can carry the weight of a whole community's future. Yet, in dry lands, stored water can be as important as a wall or a temple. 75. Some Maya cities created systems for moving water. Maya engineers used channels, drains, aqueducts, and shaped landscapes to guide water where it was needed. Palenque, for example, had water management features linked to its springs and urban layout. Other cities used different solutions depending on rainfall, terrain, and geology. Managing water meant managing both too little and too much. Heavy rains could damage buildings and paths. Long dry periods could threaten households and crops. The best solutions had to work across changing seasons. Water engineering is often hidden because it lies below ground or follows natural slopes. But it is one of the quietest signs of urban intelligence. A city survives not only because of what rises above the earth, but also because of what flows through it. 76. Maya cities needed enormous amounts of labor. A large Maya city required coordinated labor. Workers quarried stone, carried materials, mixed plaster, built roads, planted fields, maintained reservoirs, produced food, made pottery, and repaired structures. Monumental architecture depended on this vast foundation of daily work. Labor could be organized through households, communities, rulers, tribute obligations, and religious ceremonies. The exact systems varied over time and from place to place. But no temple rose through the work of one person alone. Thinking about labor helps make the past more human. Behind every staircase were people carrying loads. Behind every painted wall were people burning lime, preparing pigments, and smoothing surfaces. The great achievements of Maya civilization were collective achievements, created by thousands of hands. 77. Lime plaster was made through intense heat and work. To make lime plaster, Maya builders heated limestone to create quicklime, then processed it with water and other materials. The result could be used for floors, walls, stucco sculpture, and painted surfaces. This allowed buildings to look smooth, bright, and finished. The process demanded fuel and careful control of heat. It also shows how deeply Maya construction depended on knowledge of materials. Stone was not simply stacked. It was transformed through fire and chemistry into new forms. A polished plaster floor might look simple when finished, but beneath that smoothness was a chain of work. Gathering stone, cutting wood, building fires, carrying water, mixing material, and applying it before it set. Civilizations are often made from hidden processes like these. 78. Maya cities changed and rebuilt themselves over time. A Maya temple was often not built only once. New rulers could add layers, enlarge structures, cover earlier buildings, or construct new temples beside old ones. Archaeologists sometimes find earlier phases hidden inside later monuments. This means a city was never completely finished. It grew and changed with each generation. A plaza might be reshaped. A palace might be expanded. A stairway might be rebuilt. The past existed beneath the present, literally enclosed in layers of stone and plaster. There is a gentle lesson in this. Places, like punk people, contain earlier versions of themselves. A temple may look solid and single from the outside, but inside it can hold many old decisions, ceremonies, and memories. 79. Burials connected rulers to temples and ancestors. Important Maya burials were sometimes placed within or beneath temples, palaces, and other ceremonial structures. The dead could be accompanied by offerings such as pottery, jade, shells, obsidian, and other meaningful objects. For royal families, burial helped connect the living ruler to ancestors. A temple could become a place where dynastic memory was preserved and renewed. Visiting, rebuilding, or honoring such places linked politics to family history and sacred obligation. Ancestors were not simply people of the past. In many Maya ideas, they remained part of the ongoing life of the community. A tomb beneath a temple made this relationship physical. The city stood above its history, and its history continued to shape the city. 80. Ancient Maya ideas about death included continuity and transformation. Maya art and ritual suggest that death was not always understood as a simple ending. Ancestors, underworld places, rebirth, maze cycles, celestial movement, and ritual transformation all shaped complex ways of thinking about life beyond one moment. It would be wrong to reduce these ideas to one short statement because beliefs varied by time and place. But many Maya images show that the boundaries between life, death, earth, and sky were imagined as connected rather than completely separate. This can feel comforting in a quiet way. The seasons change. Seeds disappear into soil and rise again. The moon fades and returns. A person's name can remain on stone. The ancient Maya saw a world full of endings that were also part of larger cycles. 81. The Classic period was a time of major city growth. The period from about 250 to 900 CE is often called the Classic period in Maya history. During these centuries, many lowland cities reached remarkable levels of architectural, artistic, political, and intellectual development. Tikal, Calakmul, Palenque, Copán, Cacao, and many other centers built monumental structures, raised carved stelae, produced fine art, and maintained complex political relationships. Writing became especially visible in public monuments. Royal courts supported artists, scribes, and specialists. Calling it classic does not mean every place experienced the same success. Some areas rose earlier or later. Some cities remained smaller. Yet, the period is remembered because it left such a powerful archaeological record. It was a time when the Maya world spoke loudly in stone, paint, and inscription. 82. The so-called Maya collapse was not one event. The phrase Maya collapse can make it sound as though an entire civilization disappeared in a single dramatic moment. That is not what happened. Between roughly the late 8th and 10th centuries, many southern lowland cities experienced political disruption, population decline, reduced monument building, and abandonment of some centers. The reasons were complex and varied: drought, warfare, environmental pressure, changing trade routes, leadership problems, and social conflict may all have played roles in different places. Reported. Scholars continue to study the evidence. The important point is that Maya people did not vanish. Communities continued in many regions. Northern cities remained active. Languages, customs, farming knowledge, and families endured. It is more accurate to imagine a long period of change than a final curtain falling everywhere at once. 83. Drought likely contributed to changes in some Maya regions. Climate research has found evidence that periods of drought affected parts of the Maya region, including during times of major political change. In areas dependent on seasonal rainfall, long dry periods could strain agriculture, water storage, trade, and public confidence. But drought was not a single answer to every question. A dry climate becomes more dangerous when cities are already facing rivalry, resource pressure, social inequality, or political instability. Different communities responded in different ways. Some adapted, some moved, some changed their systems. This complexity matters. Ancient people were not passive before weather. They built reservoirs, diversified crops, traded, and reorganized. Yet even careful planning has limits. A long drought can make every decision harder, especially in large, crowded cities. 84. Some northern Maya cities continued to flourish after southern changes, while many southern lowland centers declined in the terminal classic period. Cities in northern Yucatan continued to grow or remain important. Chichén Itzá, Uxmal, and later Mayapan show that Maya history continued in new forms. This regional shift is one reason the word collapse can mislead. Power moved. Trade patterns changed. Architectural styles evolved. Political centers rose in different landscapes. The story did not end. It changed direction. A civilization is not a single candle that goes out. It is more like a field of many lights. Some dim, some brighten, some move farther away, and some continue burning in places we were not looking. 85. Mayapan became important in the later Maya world. Mayapan was a major Maya center in northern Yucatan during the post-classic period. It developed after the height of Chichén Itzá and became an important political and ceremonial place. Its walled urban area, temples, and densely built spaces show another form of Maya city life. The post-classic Maya world was connected to wider networks across Mesoamerica. Coastal trade, shifting alliances, and new political arrangements shaped this era. It was not a fading copy of the classic period. It had its own energy, institutions, and artistic expressions. Mayapan reminds us that history often looks different after a transformation. A later city may not resemble an earlier capital, but it can still be lively, creative, and powerful in its own way. 86. Spanish invasion and colonization brought profound disruption. When Spanish forces and colonial systems arrived in the Maya region in the 16th century, they brought violence, new diseases, forced labor, religious pressure, and major changes to political life. The effects were devastating for many communities. Yet, Maya people resisted, adapted, preserved languages, maintained traditions, and continued to shape their own lives under difficult conditions. Colonial records are often written from outside perspectives, so it is important to listen carefully for Maya voices within and beyond them. The survival of Maya communities through colonial disruption is one of the most important parts of the story. It reminds us that the Maya are not only an ancient subject. They are living peoples whose history continued through conquest, change, and endurance. 87. Maya people are still here today. More than 7 million Maya people live today in Mesoamerica and around the world. They speak living Maya languages, maintain traditions, farm, teach, work in cities, create art, practice ceremonies, and participate in modern political and social life. It is important to say this clearly, because popular images often place the Maya only in the distant past. Ancient temples are part of Maya heritage, but they are not the whole story. Contemporary Maya communities are not leftovers from history. They are living cultures with their own voices and futures. When we speak about the ancient Maya, we should do so with respect for the people whose ancestors created those cities, and whose knowledge continues in many forms today. 88. Maya language communities preserve deep knowledge. Maya languages carry ways of naming landscapes, plants, animals, seasons, relationships, and ceremonial ideas. Each language holds a long history of sound and meaning. When a language remains alive, it preserves more than vocabulary. It preserves a way of noticing the world. Some Maya communities use calendar, knowledge, and agricultural observation in ways that connect past and present. Others work to teach languages to younger generations, create literature, record oral histories, and defend cultural rights. A living language is like a river. It carries water from old mountains, but it keeps moving through new places. The Maya past is not locked in stone because it is also carried in voices. 89. Daykeepers continue calendar traditions in some communities. In some Maya communities, daykeepers continue to work with sacred calendar cycles. They may guide ceremonies, interpret days, support community balance, and preserve knowledge passed through generations. This living practice helps correct the idea that Maya calendars are only museum objects. The calendars are not merely ancient puzzles. For some people, they remain part of cultural and spiritual life. Their meaning cannot be fully understood through archaeology. The image of a daykeeper is a peaceful one, someone who pays close attention to cycles, names, seasons, and responsibilities. In a fast world, that kind of careful attention feels almost like a form of rest. 90. Our archaeologists learn from small objects as well as great temples. A famous pyramid can tell us about architecture and ceremony, but small objects often reveal everyday life. Broken pottery, stone flakes, food remains, beads, spindle whorls, animal bones, plant traces, and soil layers all help archaeologists understand how people lived. A single fragment may seem unimportant until it is placed beside others. Then patterns appear. What people ate, where they cooked, what materials they used, how they traded, how rooms changed over time. Archaeology is often patient work, built from details rather than grand discoveries. This is why the ancient Maya world keeps becoming clearer. Not because one dramatic artifact explains everything, but because thousands of small clues slowly begin to speak together. 90. He1. Deciphering Maya writing changed the study of Maya history. For many years, scholars could read Maya dates and some calendar signs, but not much of the historical content of the inscriptions. During the 20th century, progress in decipherment changed that. Researchers recognized that the glyphs recorded language, including syllables and words. As more signs were understood, monuments began to reveal names, events, family relationships, alliances, and conflicts. A field once dominated by broad guesses became much more personal and detailed. The Maya started to speak through their own records again. Decipherment is a reminder that knowledge can change suddenly after long patience. A carving may stand in silence for centuries. Then one day a reader understands its grammar. The past does not change, but our ability to listen does. 92. Modern technology is revealing hidden Maya landscapes. Tools such as airborne laser scanning, often called LiDAR, have helped researchers see traces of ancient structures beneath forest canopy. By filtering out vegetation in digital models, archaeologists can identify roads, terraces, walls, reservoirs, house mounds, and other features that are difficult to see from the ground. LiDAR does not replace excavation. It helps guide questions. A shape seen from the air must still be studied carefully. But it has shown that Maya cities and rural landscapes were often more connected and densely settled than older maps suggested. There is something almost dreamlike about this technology. A forest canopy looks continuous from above, yet Beneath it lie the faint outlines of roads and neighborhoods made long ago. The past waits under leaves, not erased, only hidden. 93. Conservation is essential for Maya heritage. Ancient Maya sites face many threats, including erosion, storms, vegetation growth, tourism pressure, looting, pollution, and climate change. Protecting them requires local communities, archaeologists, conservators, governments, and visitors to work together. Conservation is not simply about keeping stones standing. It is about respecting living heritage, protecting landscapes, supporting research, and ensuring that future generations can learn from these places. A temple is part of a wider world of forests, water, villages, languages, and memory. The best way to visit a site is gently. Walk where allowed. Do not climb where it harms the structure. Do not take fragments. Let the place remain whole for those who come after you. History is not a souvenir. It is a shared responsibility. 94. UNESCO recognition helps protect several Maya sites. Several Maya sites are recognized as World Heritage Places, including Chichén Itzá, Tikal, Copán, Palenque, and others. Such recognition highlights their cultural importance, can support conservation, research, and public awareness. But recognition also brings challenges. Famous sites receive many visitors. Paths wear down. Buildings require maintenance. Nearby development can place pressure on landscapes. Protection is an ongoing task, not a single award. A World Heritage designation can remind the world that these places belong to human history as a whole. Yet, they are also located in real communities and real countries, with local people who live near them and care for them. Good stewardship begins with that respect. 95. Maya art gives us glimpses of clothing, food, and ceremony. Because many organic materials have disappeared, Maya art is especially valuable. Painted vessels, carved stone, murals, and figurines show clothing, hairstyles, body ornaments, food, musicians, dancers, animals, and rituals. Art is not a perfect photograph. It can exaggerate, idealize, and follow symbolic rules. But it still offers rich clues. A vessel can show a ruler drinking cacao. A carving can show a costume. A mural can show people moving through a ceremony. Looking closely at art teaches patience. The smallest detail may matter. A woven pattern, a musical instrument, a serving bowl, a bird feather, or a gesture of the hand. Ancient lives return not all at once, but in these small visual hints. 96. Maya stories often connected people to animals and the landscape. Maya art and tradition include powerful animal figures such as jaguars, birds, serpents, deer, monkeys, and crocodiles. These animals were not merely background decoration. They could carry symbolic meanings, appear in stories, and connect people to different parts of the natural world. A jaguar might evoke night, strength, forests, or royal power. Birds could link earth and sky. Serpents could connect different realms. The meanings changed by context, but the wider point remains. Animals were part of an alive and meaningful world. In the forest around Maya sites today, Animal sounds often return after dark. The past and present meet in that soundscape. A city may be quiet, but the living world around it continues its own ancient rhythms. 97. The Maya understood time as layered and cyclical. One of the most relaxing ideas in Maya culture is the richness of its timekeeping. Time was not only a straight road from past to future, it was also a set of cycles, days, seasons, lunar patterns, Venus movements, ritual counts, and long historical sequences. A person could live inside several calendars at once. One day might have a place in the Tzolk'in, the Harb, a calendar round, and a long count. Each system added another layer of meaning. This does not make time confusing. It makes it deep. Like a forest with many paths, it invites people to see that the same moment can belong to many patterns. The night you are listening now is also part of a week, a season, a year, and a much older human story. 98. Maya civilization teaches us to be careful with simple stories. The Maya are often presented through simple myths. Mysterious, vanished people who predicted the end of the world, one empire of pyramid builders. None of these ideas captures the real complexity of Maya history. The truth is more interesting. There were many Maya societies, many languages, many kinds of landscapes, and many centuries of change. There was brilliance and difficulty, beauty and conflict, continuity and transformation. There are ancient ruins, but also living communities. History becomes more peaceful when we allow it to be complicated. We do not need every story to fit into one sentence. Sometimes the most honest thing is to slow down, listen to many sources, and let the past remain wide enough to hold its real people. 99. The Maya legacy reaches beyond monuments. The Maya legacy includes writing, mathematics, calendars, architecture, farming knowledge, art, language, music, community traditions, and ways of relating land to sky. It is not confined to ruins or museum cases. When we admire a temple, it is worth remembering that it came from a living society. Behind the stone were farmers, builders, parents, artists, healers, merchants, children, elders, and speakers of many languages. Their achievements were not isolated miracles. They were the result of shared knowledge accumulated over generations. That is perhaps the calmest fact of all. Human beings can create enduring things when they observe carefully, teach patiently, and work together across time. 100. The Maya story is still continuing. The final fact is also the simplest. The Maya story did not end with the fall of a city, the arrival of colonizers, or the discovery of ruins by outsiders. It continues in people, languages, ceremonies, communities, art, scholarship, and everyday life. Ancient Maya cities may now stand beneath forest and sky, their plazas quiet and their stairways worn. But the knowledge that made them had not disappeared completely. It survives in fragments of stone, in books, in fields, in living traditions, and in the voices of Maya people today. So as this journey comes to a close, imagine once more that moonlit path through the forest. The old white road leads past a reservoir toward a temple silhouette. Above it, Venus glows. Below it, the earth holds layers of memory. And time, as the Maya knew so well, continues to turn. Thank you for traveling through the Maya world with history to fall asleep. You have moved through cities and forests, calendars and constellations, stone monuments and living traditions. Now there is nothing left to do. Let the temples fade gently into the distance. Let the forests grow quiet. Let the old roads disappear beneath soft moonlight. And let sleep come in its own unhurried time. Good night.